Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, condolences to what happened 24 years ago. Now, hard to believe it's been that long, right? I sometimes to give you an idea of how I sometimes forget how long it's been. Sometimes I do a lot of tutoring, right? And I mostly tutor math, but occasionally I get somebody who's working on their social studies homework, and the idea of Pearl Harbor or some other disaster comes up. And I forget that these kids were not alive when 9/11 happened. And sometimes I instinctively almost want to ask, do you remember what you were doing on the day of 9/11? And these are like 13, 12-year-old kids. And sometimes I just forget. That's how long it has been and how short it has been for me, if you could believe it. I was going to college part time actually at the time. We had just gotten out of the classroom. My mom was driving me to school. We had just gotten out of the classroom. My mom was going to take me to the financial aid department. We overheard people screaming about, but it was very confusing at the beginning until my mom saw one of her favorite professors, and he explained, "Did you see what happened to the World Trade Center?" I thought he was talking about the earlier bombing in 1993. I knew about that one because I used to love to watch detective shows. I thought that there was a truck bomb, and a lot of people don't know about that one either. Even people old enough to be alive during that time, a lot of people don't know about it. Tomorrow, when everybody's talking about this, I guarantee there's going to be some people who don't realize there was a bombing before the 9/11 attacks. So I thought he was talking about that. Was it an anniversary, a memorial, or something like that? He says, no, no, there was an attack today. 2 planes. And the rest of the day was just a blur. The school was evacuated. My mom drove me home. On the way home, my mom actually stopped at a Joanne Fabrics. And for many years, I thought that was insane until I kind of behaved like that when we had big events during my generation. The first day I heard about COVID, I did a lot of wacky things too. So now I can understand why she went to Joanne Fabrics. Anyways, the Twin Tower complex actually had 7 buildings. So building one, so the first plane hit roughly here at 8:46 a.m. and unfortunately it severed all 3 of the stairwells. Now, since then, I've learned a lot of interesting stories, and you can find a lot of these on YouTube. One of my favorites is there's an insurance broker who worked on the 105th story, right about here, of the North Tower. And one of his colleagues had called him from the lobby. He had forgotten his badge. And the insurance broker had an assistant who was 8 months pregnant. She usually went downstairs to help with stuff like that. But he says, you know what, don't bother, I'll go down for the colleague. And he took 2 sets of elevators down because a big tower like that doesn't just have an elevator that goes to every floor, right? It has a few pivot floors, sky lobbies, that you take the elevator from the lobby to, and then you transfer to a local elevator. So he took the local to this sky lobby, and then from here down to the lobby. And he was really mad because this is 8:45 in the morning, a lot of traffic. It must have taken him a few minutes to get down there. And he goes, "Which one of you knuckleheads forgot your ID?" And just as he says that, he saw an explosion come out of the elevator, and he didn't realize what it was at the time, but it was jet fuel spilling into the lobby, and the explosion alone killed several people in the lobby. And you can only imagine the puzzled look on his face, right? And he, along with his knucklehead colleague and a few other people, ran out, and only then did they see that there was a huge fire up here. But they still didn't realize it was a plane until moments later. Obviously, Flight 175 hit right up a little bit lower here. It severed two of the three staircases. That's why a few people were able to get down. My favorite story of the South Tower was this Middle Eastern, I think Indian guy who was told he had made it to the sky lobby, one of the sky lobbies, but was told by security, "Your building is safe. Go back up." And he went back upstairs, and he actually saw the plane coming in, and he ducked behind his desk, and the plane obliterated everything in that floor except for his corner of the office. And he heard some moaning, and it was a guy from a different office altogether. And they met up with a bunch of people in the stairwells, but the guy he met had experience with firefighting and instinctively knew you had to go downward. And so they pushed through some debris and found that the third staircase, I believe it was called Staircase A, was still active. And they made it down, and they actually stopped at a floor to call family members before heading the rest of the way. And they made it a few blocks away. And the other guy says, I think that building could collapse. There's no way that would collapse. These buildings are made of steel. And mid-sentence, as he's saying that, pew, 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 and Building 2 was no more. Now, there was one guy from Building 1 who found a broken window and started to climb down the outside of the building, and apparently made it 10 or 20 stories before the collapse of the South Tower just took away his wind, apparently. And Building 1 collapsed about a half hour after Building 2. It was hit a little bit higher, and some of the debris fell onto World Trade Center 7, and fires consumed it, and it collapsed later that afternoon. There was one guy in the hotel, I can't find the story anymore, one guy in the hotel slept in for his meeting, if you could believe it, and he heard the explosion and then turned on the news to watch. Imagine being right next to World Trade Center 1, and instead of going outside to look at it, watching it on the news. And apparently he only evacuated after Tower 2 collapsed. I can't find the story anymore. Alright, this is my LEGO rendition of it at a 500-to-1 scale. Obviously, LEGO won't touch this with a 20-foot pole. I also did the courtyard. There was a shopping plaza underneath this courtyard, if you can believe it. And the doors and entrances. Unfortunately, 24 years now. This is the Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum.